Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the latest Everton news. We are going to sit down and talk about the latest news and rumours surrounding Everton Football Club over the last few days or so. We're going to talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and whether or not he will be available for Everton's Premier League fixture against Fulham this Saturday at Goodison Park. We're also going to talk about potential investment at Everton Football Club as the reports suggesting that MSP are interested in investing in Everton are still around. They're not going away, despite the fact that a couple of weeks ago, about a month or so ago, we read reports suggesting that those talks had broken down. We're still hearing reports that there could be potential investment from the MSP group into Everton Football Club. We're also going to talk about Everton Stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock and some massive news that was released regarding the stadium over the last 24 hours or so, and some other little bits and bobs that we might want to touch on as well. Everton, of course, facing Fulham on Saturday in the Premier League. The game preview to that video will be up on the channel tomorrow, so don't forget to look out for that one. An absolutely humongous game of football for Sean Dyche and for Everton Football Club. I feel like I'm constantly repeating myself at this time of year. It was very much the same this time last year. We're in April, and that pretty much means that these types of home fixtures against teams that, you know, with absolutely no disrespect to Fulham, Everton would be looking at the beginning of a Premier League season and targeting a 3 points in this fixture. It makes it even more important and even more crucial given the situation and the position that we are in, of course, especially after that defeat to Manchester United. And not only that defeat, but the performance at Old Trafford as well, which was very poor and left a lot to be desired. But we're going to talk about that all in tomorrow's game preview. For now, we're going to talk about the latest Everton news. And I suppose the biggest bit of news coming out the football club at the moment is surrounding Everton's number 9, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We seen a tweet from El Bobble last night which read that Everton striker Dominic Calvert-Lewin is back in full first team training. The number 9 can now be considered by Sean Dyche and the club's medical team for Everton matchday squad against Fulham on Saturday. Dyche was asked about this in his press conference today, and he did not leave a lot to be desired. He left a lot to be desired. Sean Dyche, he didn't give a lot of information out regarding Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He was asked, actually, after the game against Manchester United, how far Dominic Calvert-Lewin is away from being fit, away from being ready to feature in an Everton matchday squad. And I think he said something like 33 miles, and he made a little bit of a joke out of it. And, you know, and I think he followed it by giving his usual answer, which has been, you know, the same answer since Sean Dyche has come into the football club, and that is that he's recovering well, he's training well, and that's about it. We did hear from Sean Dyche today, again, very similarly. He said that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is training and going along well. Again, not really giving an awful lot of information out, not really leaving us with any sort of, excitement or maybe confidence that Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be fit and ready for this game on Saturday afternoon. However, given that report from El Bobble over the last couple of days or so, and given that Sean Dyche's sort of words about Dominic Calvert-Lewin have gone from he's progressing to he's training and going along well, that may mean that we may see Dominic Calvert-Lewin in some form on Saturday afternoon. Whether that will be in the starting 11, we'll have to wait and see. Again, it's very difficult because in an ideal world, we'd be sitting here with another striker, another number 9, who's scoring goals, who's winning us games, who is important to the team, and we'd be able to sit here and go, okay, Dominic Calvert-Lewin may be back, hopefully we see him on the bench, and hopefully he gets, 20 minutes, half an hour towards the end of the game on Saturday. But because of the situation that we're in, and because we have absolutely no attacking options, we've got 2 striking options. One of them is a fella that clearly isn't good enough and we should never have really brought in the first place, and another is a kid who, you know, is only just learning his trade and sort of getting to grips with Premier League football. And then the other option is another forward player playing out of position and very clearly not being suited to that role. So, you know, as much of me that wants to sit here and say, you know, we may see Dom back in the matchday squad, we may see Dominic Calvert-Lewin get, you know, 20 minutes, 15 minutes off the bench, we may see Dominic Calvert-Lewin start the game because of the situation that we're in and because of the fact that we simply have no other option that, let's be honest, is anywhere near as effective as Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Whatever you think about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, whether you think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you know, should be at Everton Football Club in the foreseeable future or shouldn't, what we all have to admit is there isn't any other striker or any other player that can play in that position at the club that is even comparable to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's so much better than everybody else in that area of the pitch, which obviously leads me to think that if he is fit and if he is available, Dyche might just go and throw him straight back into the team and, you know, not really use him as, you know, give him a period of, you know, sort of coming back in. And that may work against Sean Dyche because, you know, we've seen that happen before and Dom's come back into the team and it's been too quickly and he hasn't been fully ready and he hasn't been match fit and he hasn't been match sharp and he's ended up picking up another injury and going off injured and then we haven't seen him for another 2 or 3 months and we really, really can't afford for that to happen again. So, you know, this is a situation that Sean Dyche is going to have to manage, and a situation that Everton are going to have to manage, and hopefully they can manage it correctly and get this one right, because the last thing we need is Dominic Calvert-Lewin being thrown straight back into the firing line after 20 minutes, picking up an injury, coming off, and then us not seeing him again for another 2 months or, you know, for the rest of the season. So I suppose the good news is that we've had some form of update on Dominic Calvert-Lewin for the first time in a number of weeks, because before this, the only, you know, update that we'd had was that, you know, he was going along well and recovering well. Now we've got an update to state that he's training, and now we've got an update to state that he could potentially be a part of that matchday squad in some capacity on Saturday afternoon. So we'll have to wait and see as to whether or not that will be the case. I understand the manager's sort of standpoint on it in terms of pardon me, in terms of not giving too much away. You know, I think Sean Dyche is probably sitting thinking there's 48 hours to go before that game on Saturday afternoon, and he's probably thinking, I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, he's back, he's fit, he's at 100%, and then something happened over those 48 hours and he ends up not being available, and then there's a lot of stick and there's a lot of sort of finger pointing at Dyche because he said he was available and this, that and the other. So you know, I suppose the only thing we can do now is wait and see, but it is good positive news that we've got some form of an update and that he is back and potentially in contention of featuring on Saturday. If he is fit, if he is ready, if he is good to go, if he is injury free, if he is feeling good, then, you know, Dominic Calvert-Lewin could be the difference on Saturday between Everton winning this game and Everton not winning this game. And, you know, 3 points is an absolute must. I cannot confess how important it is for Everton to win this game of football. I really, really can't. So we'll wait and see. Hopefully we see him feature. Hopefully if he does feature, he's ready and it's not a case of him being thrown straight back in and, you know, with the risk of him coming off with another injury. And yeah, as I said, the importance of this fixture tomorrow is huge, especially given that Fulham are without their main number 9. Fulham are without their target man, of course, Mitrovic, who's been banned for the rest of the season. So this is a real opportunity to go and you know, effectively win a game of football that we desperately need to win. In other news, in other bits of information, the Premier League have today announced that Premier League clubs have today agreed to withdraw gambling sponsorships from the front of clubs' matchday shirts. To assist the clubs with the transition away from shirt front gambling sponsorships, the agreement will begin at the end of the 2025-2026 season. So, in a couple of seasons' time, there will be no gambling sponsorships allowed on Premier League shirts. This was voted by and agreed to by Premier League clubs and of course announced today. It would of course directly impact Everton because our shirt sponsor is Stake.com. Previously we've had SportPesa, of course, who were another gambling sponsor. However, given that this isn't likely to come into play until the 2025-2026 season, Everton will be in Bramley-Moore Dock, in the new stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock, in that season. I can't really see Everton being sponsored by Stake at that time anyway, even being perfectly honest with you. I think the Stake sponsorship screamed out sort of a last-minute deal, to sort of bring in a sponsor that is effectively going to give us, more money than anybody else. And it wasn't really a case of whether or not they were a gambling organisation. It was more about how much money are they going to give us compared to other companies, Kazoo being the example, of course, who were our previous sponsor. But I don't think this particularly impacts Everton Football Club too much because, as I said, even if this wasn't a thing, even if this wasn't agreed, even if this wasn't announced, even if this wasn't the case, I still couldn't see Everton being sponsored by Stake in 3-4 years time when this is going to really come into play. I think Stake is a temporary sponsorship, and if I'm being honest with you, if Everton is still sponsored by Stake this time in 12 months, I'll be quite surprised. So yeah, it's interesting. Of course, it's a massive step in regards to football, in regards to Premier League football. The Premier League, I believe, the first league in the world, or certainly top league in Europe, to bring something in like this, and to completely eradicate the the gambling sponsors off of the front of shirts, should I say, because I think clubs will still be allowed to have gambling partners and gambling sponsors. It just won't be allowed to be front of shirt and sort of on display in your face during a game of football. So yeah, it's interesting. It will sure take away a lot of options that clubs have for front shirt sponsorships. There's a number of Premier League clubs that are sponsored by top gambling companies, whether it be whether it be Brentford, I think, who are sponsored by, ourselves are sponsored by a gambling organisation as well. There's a number of Premier League clubs, both now and in previous years, that have been sponsored by gambling organisations, and it ultimately, this coming in means that those companies and organisations can no longer sponsor Premier League teams, and they often are the companies with the big pockets and a lot of money, hence why they're able to sponsor Premier League sides on the front of their shirts. So of course it means clubs are going to have to look elsewhere and maybe settle for deals that are a little bit less financially beneficial because of this rule that has come into play. But as I said, not too arsed about it in regards to Everton. I do think it's interesting, and it brings up a really interesting conversation about the landscape of football in general, and things like gambling sponsorships, alcohol sponsorships, things like that. But as I said, in regards to Everton, of course, it directly impacts us at this point because our current sponsor is a gambling sponsor. But when this really comes into play, I'm unsure that Stake will be associated with Everton Football Club anyway. So, but we'll wait and see. Maybe the plan was that they would be. Maybe the plan was that Stake were a long-term sponsor, and this is now thrown a complete sort of, a complete swerve in the in those plans. And it's another thing for Everton to try and resolve, and probably not resolve successfully, because what do Everton actually resolve successfully? But yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see how this one affects the football club in the course of the next couple of years. Sean Dyche has had his pre-game press conference today, as we mentioned. Spoke about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who we spoke about earlier. Also spoke about Seamus Coleman, and confirmed that Seamus will miss the game on Saturday with a hamstring injury. This, of course, opens the door back to Nathan Patterson, who we've seen return to the bench against Manchester United, to come back in and get a run in the team again. Ultimately, he's going to have to take it. Thought Nathan had a really, really good start to the season. Got an injury, come back, and then since then wasn't quite the same player. And then he got another injury, of course, in international duty, and now we're seeing him return from that injury. So hopefully he can return to that form that he had at the start of the Premier League season, pre his first injury. And we'll hopefully we see him slot back in there. There is other options, of course. Ben Godfrey could play there. That could be a potential option given the lack of game time Nathan Patterson has had recently. Mason Holgate could play there. I'd just rather have Nathan Patterson back in there if he's fit and available, and I don't see a reason as to why he's not fit and available. Ben Godfrey was absolutely atrocious against Manchester United. Granted, he was at left back, but he was absolutely atrocious. And yeah, I think if you've got a fit and available Nathan Patterson in there, then why not have him in? He's the right back, so what would be the point in not having him starting in that area? But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what the manager decides to do on Saturday afternoon. In some non-Everton news, but slightly Everton news, not really Everton news, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Fabrizio Romano released a really interesting tweet at lunchtime which read, James Rodriguez has parted ways with Olympiacos. Contract terminated with immediate effect. James is now available as a free agent on the market. Everton desperately in need of goals, desperately in need of creativity, desperately in need of a spark, desperately in need of some form of anything to motivate us to get over the line. James Rodriguez, free deal. Interesting. Obviously, this is... I'm not going to say not going to happen because Everton Football Club is a soap opera, and, you know, over the last 12, 24 months, there have been a number of sort of events that have happened surrounding Everton Football Club that if you would have taken to, I don't know, a Hollywood studio, they would have said, no, that's too unrealistic, that would never happen. So the prospect of James Rodriguez returning to Everton isn't, you know, given it's Everton, it's not the most surprising thing in the world, but let's be honest, this is probably not going to happen for multiple reasons, the big one obviously being James Rodriguez's wages, and I am pretty confident in saying that James Rodriguez will not want to come to Everton Football Club and play for about £3.50 a week just because he loves Everton Football Club. He probably will want close to £200,000 a week, as he did in his first stint, and there's no way Everton can afford that. But if you are watching James and you fancy coming for a Freddo and a sausage roll for your payment per week and just helping Everton out until the end of the season, then that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But no, I just thought it was interesting. I don't know what's gone on with James at Olympiacos. I don't know whether it's a case of injuries. I don't know whether it's a back, an issue off the pitch. I don't know. I don't know what's gone on. I don't know whether it's a financial issue on their point and James being on too much money and therefore they can't afford him. That may be the more likely outcome, but I really don't know what's gone on there. So yeah, I just thought it was really, really interesting. Imagine he does come in though. Imagine he says, no, do you know what? Forget your 200 grand a week. I'm already a multi-millionaire anyway. I don't want it. I'll come, I'll play for 3 grand a week, and I'll come, and then he comes in and he scores 5 goals and he saves us and the big super. Imagine it. Just imagine it. It's not going to happen, but we can imagine it, can't we? Anyway, as we mentioned earlier, some big news regarding Everton's new stadium. And that news is that Everton Stadium has been included as a proposed stadium for the UEFA Euro 2028 in the UK and Ireland's proposed bid. So the UK and Ireland have proposed a bid to host Euro 2028, and they have included Everton's new stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock as one of those stadiums to be used in the competition. Other stadiums that they have proposed are Wembley, the National Stadium of Wales, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Etihad, St James's Park, Villa Park, Hampden Park, Dublin Arena and Casement Park. So yeah, Everton Stadium, of course, along with the Etihad representing the Northwest there in that tournament, if that bid is to be accepted and the UK and Ireland are to host the UEFA Euro 2028. So it would be cool. Of course, it would be interesting to see international sides playing at the new ground. It would be a good opportunity for, you know, us and to be able to go down and watch various different international teams playing at the stadium and various different international players that you may not have got to watch, you know, in any other season because, you know, it wouldn't be happening. Whether or not it is accepted, we will wait and see. I can't see why it wouldn't be in terms of Everton Stadium. Maybe some of the other stadiums I don't know enough of, but yeah, I thought it was some exciting and quite interesting news, and you know, good to see that Everton Stadium is getting the recognition that it quite rightly deserves, because it will be a state-of-the-art, absolutely unbelievable stadium on the banks of the Royal Blue Mersey, and one that should be appreciated for what it is, and it's good to see that it's getting that appreciation already before it's you know, even officially opened. And pardon me, before construction has officially completed. In other news, according to Joe Thomas of the Echo, MSP Sports Capital are looking to advance talks with Farhad Moshiri to finalise a deal to acquire a stake in Everton, with talks centred on how a deal will be structured. As we mentioned before, this was some news that was sort of quite prominent a couple of months ago about Everton potentially being up for sale and MSP being a potential buyer, and then it sort of died down to instead of being a potential buyer, MSP being a potential investor instead, and this, that and the other. And then a couple of weeks ago we heard that maybe those talks had broken down, maybe those talks were not happening anymore because they couldn't come to a deal with Farhad Moshiri, and now we're reading that MSP are still looking to try and come to an agreement with Farhad Moshiri for investment in Everton Football Club. What this investment will be, we don't know. What this investment will mean, we don't know. Some rumours suggesting that they'll be investing enough to have members of their company on the club's board. Other people suggesting that it'll generally just be an investment for the stadium and stuff like that. We don't know. We'll wait and see. As I said, this is still, I would assume, very, very far away from being a completed deal, but it is. It's good to see that it's still on the cards, and potential investment, which Everton need as much of, as anything by now. By the way, given our financial situation, is still being in discussion. If you are enjoying the stream, by the way, please hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated as well. Onto a bit of news regarding Everton youngster Isaac Price. According to The Athletic, they've reported that Everton youngster Isaac Price is close to agreeing a pre-contract with Belgium side Standard Liège. Everton want to keep the 19-year-old midfielder, but despite extended negotiations, he is looking for more first-team football elsewhere. A lot of people were asking me opinion on this during the Manchester United game review on Tuesday. I'm not particularly bothered, if I'm being brutally honest, and that's not because it looks like Isaac Price could leave, or the possibility is that Isaac Price could leave. Listen, he's clearly a talented young player. He's clearly got talent. He's clearly got the ability. He's looked impressive when I've seen him in pre-season friendlies, and when I've seen him play, in Australia and America, he looked impressive. But reality is, given the situation Everton are in, given the position they're in, does he really expect to be getting first team football at the minute? Maybe, maybe not. And look, if he wants to go elsewhere to get first team football and prove his trade, then I've got absolutely no problem with that. If that comes back and bites Everton on the arse and he ends up going somewhere and becoming an absolute superstar, then that's something that we'll just have to grit our teeth and bear. But the reality is, if he wants to be playing, first team football, then he isn't going to get that at Everton, certainly not between now and the end of the season, because of the risk that Everton have got at the moment. And even if he is the answer, and I'm not sitting here saying the midfield are absolutely untouchable, but what I'm saying is, let's be honest, you've got James Garner and Tom Davies, who aren't currently getting into this Everton first team starting 11, who will be above Isaac Price in the pecking order. So he's not going to get in the first team this season. And if that means he wants to go away and prove himself, and he's not going to sign a new deal unless he's guaranteed to get in the first team this season and for the rest of the season, then so be it. It is what it is. Good luck to you. Shake your hand. Thanks for your time and wish you the best. And that's as far as I see it. It'll be disappointing because he clearly is a talented young lad, but we can't really afford to be taking that risk now, given the position that we're in. And, if he isn't going to accept that that's the case and that he's going to have to wait for his chance, then there's not much else that we can do, is there? There's not much else that we can do, really. Liverpool Echo reported a couple of days ago that Everton are yet to make a decision on the future of Conor Cody. This isn't really surprising. Again, I don't particularly know what Everton are going to do with Conor Cody, given his purchase clause is quite low. I think it's 4.5 million or something like that. this may be a deal that I could still see happening. However, would it be a good bit of business given the financial position that we're in, given that Conor Cody hasn't been in the team now for a number of months? I'm not quite sure. You have to also look at the fact that Everton are probably going to lose Yerry Mina this summer, which is you know, a first team centre back gone, of course. So, you know, when you think about that and the repercussions that will have on the rest of the team, then maybe Conor Cody signing on a permanent deal is, you know, on the cards, because let's be honest, it's very unlikely that Yerry Mina is going to get a new contract. Again, should that mean Everton go out and spend £4.5 million on Conor Cody? Not necessarily, but if we're going to have to replace him anyway, then maybe that's what the club will be looking. Cody himself, I can't particularly see him wanting to sit on the bench, to be honest with you, at Everton. Maybe he thinks that there's still an opportunity for him to get back in this team, and it's just a case of him being a bit out of form at the moment. I don't know. You've also got Jared Branthwaite, who will come back into the football club, you know, and what will be happening with Jared Branthwaite, that's another discussion that we are going to do a separate video on. Ultimately, we don't know. We don't know, and we'll wait and see, you know, what decision the club make on this, and ultimately I'm sure the manager will have a massive say in that as well. But anyway, that's going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. As I said, we'll be back tomorrow with the game preview to that Premier League fixture against Fulham on Saturday, so don't forget to look out for that one. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. It would mean a massive amount to me, and if you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like. Massive thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you later.